you are in control of whatever arbitrary rules. So one thing I thought about doing that I realized was probably wise not to is have a little exercise here where we do a really arbitrary game and I impose arbitrary rules on you. And I guarantee you'd do it. I'd say, okay, look, you can only hop on your left foot, you can hop on your right, and you can only say the letter A. The point is, like, this is a bit, Armando probably talked about the compact with the player and telling a story. As a game designer, your compact with the player is, I'm going to ask you to do a bunch of arbitrary stuff, and I'm going to restrict how you can do it. I'm going to tell you how much ammo you have and when you can have this gun and whether you can climb that wall or that wall. No, that's non-climbable, see. And as long as it's fun, they're going to buy into it. So, getting back to game design, which is, I guess, the point again, I tend to wander, is make a character, put them in a tree, then show them where they really want to be. That's the goal. Like, Barca Lounger, nice cold glass of lemonade, maybe a beer in the sun, if that's your thing. I'm just generalizing here that a lot of people would like this situation. So now our character in the tree knows his goal, but how is he going to achieve it? Okay. This is where game designers come in. So there's a lot of different ways to get out of the tree, right? Climb down with the stepladder, jump off, hit the trampoline, and maybe land in the Barca Lounger. That'd be pretty cool. Jetpack. But let's not forget our complicating factors, right? For some reason, I just love the idea of this little Cujo jumping on the trampoline. We got our villain, and someone has lovingly, placed a bomb there at the top of the stepladder just to eliminate that option. This goes into the challenge thing, which Matt covered really well. I guess how many Cujos and how many bombs to place in there is a matter of trying to craft that difficulty curve. But game design-wise, these are important things, right? It's not enough to say there's a Cujo. I don't know how many of you have tried designing a game and you say you design a feature and there's Cujo on a trampoline. Great. The programmers would be much happier. There's Cujo on a trampoline. He does 10 points of damage. He can bite, no more frequent than once every second, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The villain, he throws a rock with this velocity. Acid rain is this acidic. I know I'm reaching here a little bit, but just work with me. But most importantly, how far away is this goal? If this is 2 meters, maybe I can just jump and avoid all that stuff and land in the chair. 25 meters, that's pretty far. We set all those things. So the role of a game mechanic then is defining those artificial means to achieving your desired goal, to landing in the Barca Lounger. More specifically, what game mechanics you pick and how you design them are going to dictate the method of achieving your goal. Difficulty and flavor and fun, which is huge for games, right? Like sometimes everything else can be forgiven if it's just fun and silly, if that's your thing. I've got some examples. Logic is a huge one. Really, almost no matter what kind of game you're making. And this isn't to say that every mechanic should be logical, but a lot of times it should. Put in simpler terms, stepladder, trampoline, or jetpack, which one are you going to put? How it affects difficulty. So just give them the jetpack. They hit the button. They bypass all the hazards. There they are. Satisfying? Maybe not to everybody. So another option. And I just finished Mass Effect 2, so forgive me if I'm a little bit inspired by that. But this jetpack is not easy. You've got to get 8 parts. The 8 parts of the holy rod of, every fantasy book I read when I was a teenager. Difficulty is a huge choice that we make and impose them on the player, and I'm not going to belabor it because you just had an hour of it. Flavor and fun is great. That's one of the most fun parts to me about being a game designer. And honestly, one of the parts that sometimes I appreciate just all the other kind of collaborations from the team on, because some of the stuff you just can't think of. Some people are just really good at coming out with ideas from nowhere. Duke Nukem 3D, how many remember that game? It's so fun. The multiplayer was just awesome. Just being able to freeze my brother and then kick him in, or shoot him and have him explode, or shrink him and then have him run around and step on him. Like, oh my God, that was just incredible. But the game's not about that. But those mechanics certainly inspired the fun. I mean, really, it probably would have been a fun game anyway, but those just gave it legs. Then you've got other games like Explosion Man, where the game is a mechanic. It's one mechanic, or one that you probably more familiar with, Portal. Like, I know a lot has been said about the beauty and the just majesty of the thin story of Portal, and I don't mean thin in a bad way. Like, it's not an underhanded dig at all. I thought it was a great game. But Portal is a game about the portal. That's it, and pretty much you almost don't need a story at that point. In fact, they just, well, how could this portal device have come around? Here's the logical, Black Mesa or Aperture Laboratories or whatever, done. And then you add in a bunch of skilled crafting and you're there. But the point is, like, the flavor of Portal and the fun and everything comes from that central mechanic. So logical mechanics, this is one of my favorites. Gravity. And remember, it's not just a good idea. It's the law. Thank you. No, physics. I mean, lately there's been this like huge rage ever since Box 2D was kind of ported for Flash or created for Flash. It's like, oh my God, there's physics. And before that, it was Ragdoll. Like I can shoot a dude, I can blow his head off, and he collapses in a realistic fashion. Which, aside from being really disturbing that we love that, I think what it really comes down to is like gravity and physics are some of the best game mechanics out there for several reasons. A, they're logical, hence the slide. And that means they're understandable. You can project. You have a mental model in your mind of what happens. Like you saw the Dead Rising presentation. Why is it so satisfying to take a sledgehammer to somebody's face? Well, zombies. Let's just say zombies. It's because you have a mental model. I mean, much more satisfying than a nightstick. Like, don't you always feel cheated when like you come to the cop body and there's a nightstick? You're like, ah, like I guess it'll get me by till I get to the katana. But the beauty of the sledgehammer is like, if you've hefted one before, or a maul or something, or chopped wood, or gone to the carnival and done the ding game, I know no words. There's a heft there. And you know that once that mallet is in motion, like, it takes something to stop it, and the idea of that something being somebody's occipital lobe is painful, right? And so that's why a sledgehammer, it's not right? So you have a mental model, and you kind of can build that tension as he's swinging, right? That's the best part, as he's swinging, and then, oh God, here's about to be a blood spray. But that's something you can logically model in your head. The other benefit of physical-based mechanics is it can be incredibly complex. How boxes stack and you kick them and the way they're going to fall. You can, it's that uncanny valley thing, I guess, to a degree, but you can look at that and you know how it should behave. The players know how it should behave. And physics-based mechanics are incredibly complex, but it's easy to parse in your head because you live it. You live it every day. You don't have to be a physicist. Like, it's about the fact that, if you get hit in the face with a sledgehammer, it's not good. And so what I love about that is being able to do incredibly complex mechanics that aren't complex to the player, because that's really what matters. So on the other side, you've got Myst and stuff like that. Or I played King's Quest I back in the day, and I think there was like at one point you had to eat a mushroom, and then you shrunk, and then you could like go through a little cave. Am I remembering that correct? Yeah. That's not logical at all. Doesn't mean it's bad, but you can't rely on the player to pre-solve that condition. You have to rely on the trial and effect, or trial and error of like, what does this mushroom do? I'll eat it. I'm small. Okay, going to put that little piece of knowledge away, which is kind of a cool way to solve a puzzle. But if your whole game is that way, that's probably not good. But the point is, what mechanics you pick definitely have a logicality or lack thereof to them. Personal interactions is a key one there too. If there's a big roided Russian gangster with an AK-47, you have a choice to threaten him. You can kind of make the logical conclusion that this might result in some hostility. And that's because we can model personal rationality. On the other hand, there's some great moments in games or whatever where people are irrational, or you don't get the response you're expecting. And those can be really, really awesome things. But if the whole game's constructed on that, then you just kind of get this whole scattershot player method of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what does anything to anything, so I'm just going to kind of hop through the world and hope for the best. So if choosing mechanics has so much impact on the game, I mean, obviously, if you don't do a good job, it's bad for the game, right? So proper difficulty is a big one. Matt was talking about that. But obviously, like making things too hard for a casual audience or making things too easy for a core audience, or going too far the other direction is bad. We talked about logic. trampoline's more fun, generally, you know. If it's trampoline, 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 then the whole adage of writing of like, or movie creation, like if every scene's a car chase, pretty soon the car chases are pretty boring. Every once in a while you need a step ladder, but trampolines are definitely more fun. I love how I put all these like cues in, but I've got some other stuff planned, so we're gonna skip through. In my opinion, people are pretty forgiving, you know, as long as the game's fun, your mechanic doesn't have to make a lot of sense, or actually, sorry, you know, story, et cetera, et cetera. Again, Portal, I mean, it's such a cool mechanic. You know, Explosion Man. Like, they do a great job there at Twisted Pixel of just coming up with a concept and running with it, right? And the enthusiasm, and really the way the mechanics tie in, a platformer about kind of being able to double jump through explosion and all that stuff, or blow things up, it works. The other problem is choosing the right mechanic and doing it poorly. This happens all the time. My personal pet peeve is bad tuning. You know, the old floaty jump. What is the, you know, we've kind of found through 25 years of video game development, or whatever you want to count, that, you know, if the jump isn't a second, 1.0 seconds or 1.05 seconds, like it feels wrong. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's too floaty or not, you know, or not high enough. It's just bizarre how the jump is just so almost universal. Hair trigger movement, sluggish turning. You know, I think there was a couple. We were reviewing Sonic games before we started working on Sonic Rivals, and there were some games that just had so much potential. I don't mean the old ones, they were awesome, but there were some games that had a lot of potential, but just, to me, this is just my view of it, had really sluggish controls, or too hair trigger, like no feeling of heft, no feeling of weight, right? That breaks a game. Like, think of all that other work you do, and you didn't make it to where that part was satisfying. Bad balance, of course, that's an easy one to get wrong. Ammo starvation and surplus. You know, I love arguments for both. I mean, I'm kind of waiting. Sometimes I love that perfect game where it's like you're always on your last clip. And that's great. But then sometimes there's games like Serious Sam without ammo would be pretty lame, right? I'm not going too far back with Serious Sam, I hope. iPhone, man. Like, that's what it needs, right? You know, I don't know how many games I've bought on my iPhone and just hate. And the ones I hate the most are not the ones that you buy and you kind of not expecting much. It's like, yeah, it sucks. It's the ones that look awesome and have amazing production quality, and then you go to play it and you're just like, I can't control it. You know, it's like I'm caught in Groundhog Day now. Oh, I can choose between tilt and on-screen D-pad. Okay, on-screen D-pad sucks, so I switched to tilt. Oh, it's not tuned. That sucks. I never play the game again. And it's gotten so frustrating because some of them look like such good games. I bought Archon. You know, I loved playing Archon on the Commodore 64 back in the 80s. And I bought that. And maybe I just didn't tune it right, whatever. I don't want to slag them, but it was uncontrollable to me. And it's such a waste because it looked good and it was bringing a game that I used to love.